This episode will be completely taken out of context. Welcome to the Fact Check This podcast.
All right, fact check this. And as I have been promising for a while, today I'm going to do the follow-up on the Lord of the Rings conversation. This time with an article from Salon. Salon has always been one of my favorites to do articles from because they're always so, like, I think my favorite thing about Salon articles that talk about right-wingers is how much they just completely miss the mark. They write these articles where they talk about why right-wingers get things wrong, why we're not seeing the culture war the right way, why we're not reading Lord of the Rings right, why our thought process is wrong, but they so completely miss the entire point. And it kind of goes back to that episode I did last week where it wasn't Salon, but another Esquire, where the author was talking about fans of The Boys and how they missed the point, as the entire time he's missing the point. Now, I did an episode about this a while ago, and it's one of my favorites, and I try to point people to it, where I talk about diversity of thought and how, like, on the right, you actually have a very diverse thought. There's a lot more acceptance and tolerance of a lot of stuff. Whereas the left, the supposed, party of tolerance and acceptance, very tolerant and accepting as long as you believe everything that's in their little bubble of a worldview. And they don't have any room for anything outside of that bubble. Now, that bubble claims to be all of these things that are very tolerant and accepting of everything. But if you can't be uber tolerant of literally everything, regardless of how horrific it might be, then you're not allowed in their bubble. And so when you go and you look at these patterns of the diversity of thought, right-wingers actually have an easier time understanding the left and explaining what the problem is on the left, because we actually are able to take all of that stuff in and look at it objectively and say, no, that's fucking batshit crazy, right? Whereas there is no objectivity on the left. It's a very, very tight little worldview of a thought that if you don't fit perfectly in this little bubble of ours, you cannot be here. And we hate you. You are terrible. You are a fascist. You are everything that's wrong with the world. And it's fucking insane. And I mean, that's not just like me talking. That's when I did that episode, and I'll have to go back and find the exact episode number on it because it was really good stuff. I looked at a combination of the diversity, like the scatter patterns on what's acceptable within the right versus the left as far as like different ideas and concepts and stuff like that. And then also looked at the heat map thing, which I've talked about the heat map multiple times in both Facebook posts and on the show. When you look at and break down the heat map of where they place their moral hierarchy. And when you start to look at all that stuff, like it makes sense why you get authors from Esquire and Salon that clearly don't get it, because their brain will not allow them to get it. They can only see the world in that little bubble, and anything outside of that bubble is wrong and bad and fascist and terrible, and they won't even entertain it, much less attempt to understand it. So that's why we get articles like this. And And that's why I like reading them, because it's interesting to see the lack of understanding and to see their thought pattern put out in words as to what they think is wrong with the right-wing way of thinking. And what you find almost every single time is that what they think right-wingers think versus what right-wingers actually think and believe are two drastically, wildly different things. So anyway, let's take a look. Far Right's Lord of the Ring Obsession by Jeremy Linfeld. This is from a couple years ago. For most Lord of the Rings fans, hobbits are the portly little folk of Middle-earth who live in homes carved out of hillsides and spend quiet lives smoking pipeweed, singing songs, and drinking ale. But some influential hard-right figures of our world see the lives of those endearing halflings, free from government intervention and overreach, as close to societal perfection. Billionaire tech mogul and Trump's early Silicon Valley ally, Peter Thiel, spent his teenage years reading and rereading The Lord of the Rings. The trilogy now lives on in his business empire decades later. Thiel was also shaped by the vision of Hobbit life that the Palo Alto offices of his multi-billion-dollar firm, Palantir Technologies, are informally known as the Shire. In Tolkien's writings, the Shire is a countryside region inhabited by hobbits. Thiel's version, however, lacks the grassy hills and hobbit holes that have charmed fans for generations. Thiel's Shire was Palantir's brick and glass headquarters, at least until pressure from local activists helped convince the company to move its base of operations to an industrial complex in Colorado. While some of Palantir's employees have referred to themselves as hobbits, their offices are actually populated by software engineers and machine learning researchers. Thiel, the co-founder of PayPal, is one of many prominent hard-right figures everywhere from Silicon Valley to the Italian political scene who have been profoundly affected by J.R.R. Tolkien's writings. Some of such Tolkienites credit that fantasy world with helping to shape their understanding of their own. It all raises a question. What do their interpretations of The Lord of the Rings and the rest of Tolkien's legendarium say about them? Palantir is one of Thiel's 6 firms that pull extensively from Middle-earth geek speak, with names like the demigod-inspired LotR Ventures and the Elven Valley-themed Rivendell One LLC. Palantir Technologies is named for Tolkien's Palantiri, indestructible seeing stones used for fortune-telling and observing events across great distances in Middle-earth. Palantir is the singular form of the word. Like those interconnected crystal balls, Thiel's firm specializes in data mining and large-scale surveillance, so the name seems appropriate. I do want to go back just briefly. I thought it was funny how they refer to the Palantir offices as the Shire, and his employees refer to themselves as hobbits, but they're not actually living in hobbit holes, and it's not actually a grassy outdoor scenery. It's actually just a big office. Yes, the inability to understand nuance is another one of the things that just absolutely befuddles me whenever I read these articles. They take everything to such extreme and ignorant literals. Anyway, carrying on. According to Andy Ellis, an information security expert and lifelong Tolkien fan, Palantir's name may be apt, but it was not well thought through. I've always thought Palantir was the most foolish name for a company, Ellis said. In The Lord of the Rings, the Palantiri corrupt nearly all who use them. When the good wizard Saruman uses one to spy on the peoples of Middle-earth, he is drawn in by its power and ensnared by the Dark Lord Sauron, who utilizes the Seeing Stone to get the once wise man to serve him. Users of Teal's Palantir technology have, critics allege, been similarly lured down a dark path. The company has been accused of facilitating the human rights abuses of some of its biggest clients. Amnesty International says the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement uses Palantir technology to track undocumented migrant workers in Mississippi and plan raids that led to the separation of children from their parents. See, a leftist author will consider that a dark path, but is it really? When Amnesty inquired about the company's partnership with U.S. immigration authorities in 2020, Palantir's Director of Privacy and Civil Liberties stated that the way their products were used in immigration enforcement raises legitimate and important questions for us about our complicity in activities that, while lawful, may nonetheless conflict with norms and values that many of us hold. Matt Mahamoudi, an advisor in artificial intelligence and human rights at Amnesty, says the surveillance firm's projects cross moral lines. Palantir has been trying to convince people that they have a Privacy and Civil Liberties Council that ensures the company doesn't break the law, Mahmoudi says. But that is not necessarily consistent with the safety and protection of human rights. According to Mahmoudi, the mass surveillance projects that Palantir is involved in and the lack of transparency surrounding those projects represent a slippery slope toward the erosion of basic freedoms. Palantir did not respond to a request for comment. See, we go back to this. Palantir has been trying to convince people that they have a Privacy and Civil Liberties Council that ensures the company doesn't break the law. In cooperating with ICE and other enforcement agencies, they're not breaking any law. You may or may not think that there is some morally gray area to them cooperating with the authorities to find people and deport them, but it's not breaking the law. And also, is it that morally gray of an area? The double-edged sword. Billionaire Palmer Luckey, founder of the virtual reality company Oculus, known for its headsets, named his defense company after a powerful artifact of Middle-earth, and Drool, a sword made from the shards of a weapon that defeated the Dark Lord. In our world, the defense contractor Anduril is a very different military tool. The company, which Teal Founders Fund invested in early on, builds artificial intelligence-focused defense technology and sells its products to government agencies like the U.S. Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security. Under the Trump administration, the company began building surveillance towers along the U.S.-Mexico border that track undocumented immigrant crossings using object recognition. Computer scientists and human rights groups have accused virtual border walls projects like Anduril's of increasing migrant death rates by pushing people toward less monitored, more hostile terrain. Or, here's the thought, or if they were smart, it would push them to stop entering the country illegally. It's not the fault of Anduril that illegals choose to do illegal things and then they do it unsafely. Right? Like, this isn't some moral quandary that Palmer Luckey should be worried about. This is a definitive choice by the ones who are trying to enter illegally to do that illegally and then to do it unsafely. It's not the fault of these, border wall projects. U.S. Customs and Border Protection has described the towers as partners that never sleep or blink. To Tolkien fans, that description might conjure up images of Sauron's fiery ocular watchtower. Rather than the weapon used to defeat his evil forces. No, not at all. You know what it makes me think of? It makes me think of when they're approaching Gondor and you have the two big statues, the big, like the watchtowers, the watchmen statues. That's what it makes me think of. They're standing there saying, "Stay back. This is protected land." The gold standard, admiration for Tolkien, is more rule than exception in some influential parts of the tech industry, according to Ellis, who works at the cloud security firm Orca Security. Tolkien was one of the few things early tech geeks had in common growing up, so it was easy to make references to it, Ellis says. The shared cultural language gave entrepreneurs a reservoir of references to bond over. It also allowed tech world builders to piggyback off of the English language's most prolific world builders. For Teal and Lucky, using Middle-earth terminology in their business dealings is not just some whimsical literary exercise. It's a nod to the libertarian philosophy they perceive in Tolkien's world. Patrick James is the author of The International Relations of Middle-earth, an analysis of real-world geopolitics through the lens of Lord of the Rings. Also a professor of international relations at the University of Southern California, James says that nearly any ideological group can find something to latch onto in Tolkien's works. So what do conservative libertarians find so appealing about Tolkien's fantasy world? No government tells the free peoples, the elves, men, dwarves, and the sentient tree people called Ents, what to do, James says. There really isn't much government at all. Instead of a bureaucratic committee, an independent coalition correctly decides to send a fellowship to destroy the One Ring and stop Sauron from establishing a dictatorship over Middle-earth. Libertarians see when crisis comes to Middle-earth, good people willingly share resources without explicit government mandates. Public investment largely goes toward defense, so when foreign hordes invade, there are usually enough swords and shields for willing fighters to take up arms against them. Charismatic leaders usually rise to the top thanks to their heroism and overcome immense hardship to fulfill their destinies. This, of course, is a fantasy world where right and wrong are objective. There is little reference to any complex sexuality, and people hurt in battles either heal quickly or die fast. The reason that this world has objective right and wrong is because right and wrong tend to be fairly objective. And it's not, that's wrong. That's wrong on me. It's not about right and wrong. It's about good and evil. And good and evil tend to be more objectively one or the other. Right and wrong, I will definitely agree there are gray areas. And I think I'm pretty sure this is what we talked about. Like, we talked about this when Jay and I did our episode, where the left always thinks the ring is about power because it's called the Ring of Power, right? And I think that's wrong as well, but the ring is not about power. The ring is a manifestation of evil and the corrupting evil that power brings. It's not about power itself. It's about evil. And I always miss that. And it's the same thing with this. And yes, there's little reference to any complex sexuality because sexuality isn't complex. man, woman, straight, gay. I mean, that's really as complex as it needs to be. It's really as complex as biologically it is. Anything else outside of that is a mental illness. Figure it the fuck out. I don't know. Roughly 42% of them figure it out on their own anyway. So anyway, moving on. People hurt in battles either heal quickly or die fast. In a 1943 letter to his son, Tolkien outlined his political opinions as leaning more and more toward anarchy, but emphasized he meant abolition of control, not whiskered men with bombs. While the limited government of Tolkien's anarchy seems in line with what many modern libertarians say they support, the anarchism of Tolkien's era is a far cry and 80 years from Teal and Lucky's libertarianism. Teal and Lucky seem primarily interested in reducing the tax collecting capacity of government. Their political contributions and lobbying show that they fund candidates for political office who increase government control over citizens' personal lives and bodies. This is an anti-abortion or a pro-abortion thing, what he's talking about here. Because Teal and Lucky tend to promote and fund candidates who are pro-life. And that's not trying to increase control, government control over personal lives and bodies. That is trying to prevent people from murdering children. But again, this is how the left twists their words and the narrative on what is versus what they see. And again, we go back to that, the little tiny ball of this is what's allowable opinion. And if it's not in that ball, they won't have anything to do with it, and it's evil. Teal and Lucky have donated to political candidates who merge Christianity with nationalism and seek to ban abortion entirely, as well as undermining democracy by falsely claiming that the 2020 presidential election was stolen from Donald Trump. We are never going to hear the end of undermining democracy. Even today, even after the election of 2024, it's still undermining democracy. Falsely claiming that the 2020 election was stolen, and then they turn around and claim that 2024 was stolen, even though there was like nothing questionable about it. It was a ass whooping from the jump. Their little bubble that they can't get out of. And the problem is everything in their bubble is truth. To them, it is objectively true. There is absolutely no way that it can't be true. It doesn't matter how many facts, figures, statistics, studies, anything that you show them. If it's in their bubble, it is true, period. And you cannot convince them otherwise. What's the meme that like statistics say that 84% of people won't change their mind on something? They're not going to change their mind. It doesn't matter what you tell them. They have been so thoroughly brainwashed that they cannot see anything other than their truth. And that's the problem is left versus right is my truth versus actual truth. Moving on. Tolkien's writing do not address those issues, nor do they explore the opposition of economic regulation backed by his conservative fans. Where is the economics in Middle-earth? Asked James. There is no wizard stock exchange or elf supply chain outlined in Lord of the Rings. Take the dwarves. Their economy seems to be based around the mining of precious resources. They delve deeper and deeper into the bowels of the mountains until they are punished for their ambition and greed by monstrous forces they awaken. Dwarf commerce and the exchange of gold and silver coins are as close as Tolkien gets to fleshing out his fantasy world's economics. And in the Shire, hobbits have something that doesn't really look like capitalism. They don't seem to have any sort of economy set up. Deep breaths. Here we go. The hobbits and the Shire represent a agrarian farm life. They don't have some stock exchange or marketplace or anything like that, because it is based around the idea of what we were. It is a idealistic utopian type of setting, because everybody there grows their own food. They have all their own stuff. They take care of themselves and they take care of their families. Notice one of the big themes early on in some of the books and stuff is like the different families that are represented in the Shire when they have Bilbo's, like, and Gandalf makes reference to Pippin's family, the Tooks, and he talks to Frodo and Bilbo about their families, about the Bagginses, and like family is big. This is very much the ideal of agricultural communities pre all of this, what you consider a modern economy. Their economy was Sam was a gardener. He took care of stuff. They have what's the farmer that Pippin and Merry are stealing stuff from? They farm, they grow stuff, they have, everybody does things. Their economy is that they are a community that does all of these things. And that's where like some of the like hippie commune type things sort of get it right. Like that is the ideal. That is what you aspire to and aim for, is to have, a community that comes together, that everybody does what they do well, and then they take care of each other. I have extra radishes and you have extra bread, so we will make exchanges. Like, and that's kind of the Ancapistan, idealistic libertarian idea of a society. Is our economics are, I have things that I need for me, and if I have extra things and you have things that I don't have, then we exchange. And maybe I am good at working on cars and you need your car fixed, so I can do that for you, and you will give me in exchange some extra bread or what. It's, there doesn't need to be a wizard stock exchange. And it's crazy how the most anti-capitalist types, like Salon authors, are also so, oh, where's your Wall Street? Where's your wizard stock exchange? Where's your grocery store? These are the people that would say, why would I ever plant a garden and grow tomatoes when I can just go get tomatoes at Kroger? Why does anybody need to shoot? Why does anybody need to hunt for a deer when you can just go get a steak at Walmart? These people are so divorced from reality that they don't understand. That they wouldn't understand our life here as technologically advanced as we are with my man cave of a garage with every gaming system ever created and internet and power and everything, like we have a garden and we have animals and we get our own eggs, we hunt. I have deer meat in that refrigerator, like we fish, we do all, like they can't grasp not requiring some government thing providing everything. Like they just can't contemplate providing for yourself. And so that's why they don't understand, like the Shire doesn't have anything that really looks like capitalism. Why would it? Unless you're a retard and who thinks capitalism is some like universal evil. And it does, actually. It would be very capitalistic in that there would be a free exchange of goods and services for goods and services to each other as the market demands. That is truly free market economics. Make the Shire great again. I need to find this author, or what they say he was. Patrick James is the author of The International Relations of Middle Earth. I need to look that up because something tells me that guy is a full-on fucking brain-dead moron. Maybe that's for another day. If it's actually a book, maybe not, but I might still get it and read it. I do enjoy from time to time purchasing books that I know I'm not going to like, just because I think that goes back to some of the diversity of thought. Like, how many left-wingers would ever buy a book by Donald Trump just to see what it says? Whereas I don't think I've got it anymore. No, I think I took it to Goodwill. But I have, in the past, purchased Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and other left-winger books just to see what they say. Just to see, like, what's their version of this? What's their take on this? Like, I want to understand. And I don't think from reading a Hillary or an Obama book, I actually understood anything other than those two really know how to play the game. Maybe I should probably read different things by like more left-wing thinkers like this guy. I should probably read that book just to see what he thinks the real world Lord of the Rings implications are versus what I and others of my mindset believe. And that's what we believe based on like Tolkien's other writings and things that he said, not our idealistic view of how capitalism is evil or something. Anyway. Free market hardliners aren't the only conservatives with deep admiration for Middle Earth. Italy's recently elected hard-right Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni may be the most devout Tolkienite to ever hold elected office. As a teenager in 1993, Meloni spent time at Camp Hobbit, an Italian political fantasy retreat for the country's far right. On her personal webpage from the 90s, she called herself Kyrie, the Undernet Dragon, and wrote that Lord of the Rings is, of course, her favorite book. So what might a politician who has praised Italy's World War II-era fascist leader and Hitler ally Benito Mussolini find appealing about a trilogy that offers a searing critique of authoritarianism? Does it, though? Again, that's the leftist reading into it what they want to see from it. But is that what it actually is? A searing critique of authoritarianism? It's a story of good versus evil. Anyway, in a conversation with the New York Times last year, Maloney outlined what she sees as anti-globalization messages in Lord of the Rings. Maloney pointed to the fact that each of Tolkien's races benefit from the value of specificity, meaning that they had particular cultures and identities that were worth preserving. She extended the same logic to the peoples of Europe's sovereign nations. Italians, like hobbits and elves and dwarves, are unique and should protect against anything that threatens their identity, she suggests. James points to another plot line from which Maloney may have taken inspiration. At the end of the trilogy, the quartet of hobbits from the Fellowship return to the Shire to find their idol overrun by Saruman and his henchmen, who have turned the once bucolic countryside into an industrialized wasteland and enslaved its residents. To someone like Maloney with a romanticized sense of the past, it's easy to say, look at the Lord of the Rings. It was so much better once upon a time. Rapid changes came, others began intruding, and everything got worse. These things are objectively true, by the way. Maloney is the most visible representative of a post-fascist culture whose unifying mythology draws on Tolkien. After the collapse of Mussolini's government, the remaining fascist movement shifted away from revering strong men and toward idolizing the little guy and his rural old-fashioned shire assailed by a vast but faceless, far-off, industrialized evil force. Mussolini biographer Nicholas Farrell wrote in The Spectator early last year, "For Maloney, the creator of Middle-earth is a genuine traditionalist icon. I think that Tolkien could say better than us what conservatives believe in," Maloney asserted to the Times. Is she wrong? Are they wrong? Is that wrong? Look at what's happening right now in rural areas with the I feel this. Look at the solar farms and the AI and the AI data centers and stuff that are going in. The little guy in his rural old-fashioned shire assailed by a vast but faceless, far-off, industrialized evil force. Are you telling me, if you live rurally, that you don't drive down the road and see those fucking solar panels that nobody knows where they came from? All of a sudden they spring up. You can't get any answers from any of the county or city council people on who approved this. The state government is clearly pushing this as hard as they can in every rural state across the country. These things are a fucking pox on our society. They are an absolute eyesore, and they are destroying rural communities. And I don't mean that as like, you know, destroying it. Like, they are physically destroying our communities. I've done episodes on this before. The chemicals that are used, the different things that are used in these solar panels, and all of the oil that they have to, because those panels tilt. They are run by machinery. There are wires and everything else, and all of the stuff that gets put into the ground to make these things and make them operate. Oh yeah, it's on a lease. So in 28 years, when the lease expires, then we can just remove the panels and it all goes back to being farmland. No, it doesn't. It's ruined. It's completely and totally fucking ruined because of all of the leaching of the chemicals and the different stuff that they use on these things. It will destroy everything. This is now scorched earth. Like, we are fucked. Everything that has a solar panel on it 28 years from now is completely and totally fucked forever. We are destroying everything. This is the green movement. Destroy the planet to save the planet. while using the most ass-backwards, fucking retarded logic ever created. We are under attack. The Shire is burning. Maloney is absolutely right. Woke Token. Token's politics were at times aligned with those of today's right wing, but he was born in 1892, and the forces that forged his worldview were radically different from those that shaped the perspective of anyone alive today. Two world wars, and industrialization marked him. He lived in a pre-globalized and far less cosmopolitan era than our own. At Tolkien's time, Middle Earth offered somewhat forward-thinking portals or portrayals of some topics that even today might be mocked as woke. An emphasis on family and community might be mocked as woke. I doubt it. More than a decade before the U.S. Supreme Court enshrined the right to interracial marriage, Tolkien portrayed taboo-breaking relationships between different races in his books. A subversion of gender roles and even cross-dressing made a tide-turning heroism of one woman possible. These fucking people. A elf and a man is not some taboo breaking race mixing. That is peak retardation. Putting on the armor to go to battle was not cross-dressing. They read into it what they want, and then they project that out as a justification for why they're fucking insane. That's every time. Every single fucking time. And the only time they don't do it is when you get something like Heinlein, where Heinlein is very explicit with his explanation of it, of things. And so it just stomps their progressivism so hard into the ground that they then have to just label him a fascist and make him a persona non grata in all of like academia. You can't read Heinlein in collegiate literature departments because he's just a fascist, right? Like, if there's any way for them to twist it, they will twist it into their own thing so that they can. It's like the progressive twisting of different scriptures and Bible verses and stuff. It's just so tiring. It's just so tiresome and infuriating to the way that their brains are so fucking warped. As for the hobbits at the center of the story, they are underestimated due partly to their physical attributes. They are less than 4 feet tall with large and hairy feet. Nothing wrong with having big hairy feet. I got big hairy feet. But end up playing crucial roles in defeating evil in a rebuke of what today might be called ableism. Brain dead. Absolutely fucking brain dead. There are also plenty of messages about destroying nature at one's peril in Tolkien's works, such as the deforestation of important woodland. See, I just went on a rant about that. These leftist lunatics are so worried about preserving nature, not destroying nature, and then they push for solar farms and AI data centers. Like, windmill farms that do the same thing. Again, I've done a whole episode on the green industry and how destructive those things are in practice. Both the mining that they do to get the minerals to make these things, the amount of energy that's used in producing the things that are necessary for those solar panels and those wind turbines, the waste and what, like, the just straight up filling landfills with all of this garbage after these things are no longer functional. The complete just annihilation of any usefulness of the ground where these things go after they've reached their lifespan. Like, it's destroying nature. You want to see destroying nature? Look at these solar farms. That is destroying nature. And these left psychopaths are all for the green energy initiative. They're fucking insane. You know what happens to a coal mine after they get done mining the coal? They backfill it. And then it becomes farmland. That's it. That's the entire, like, impact to the environment. They dig into the ground. They dig up all the coal. And then when it's done, they fill the whole fucking thing back in. And it becomes farmland. There's a massive one right over here, like half a mile away from me. Huge mine. Used to be. Now it's just all farmland. There's another one about 3 miles that way out near where my aunt lives. Used to be a huge mine. Now it's just farmland. That's the environmental impact of coal. That's it. They dig in the ground and then they turn it into farmland. These solar fields, that'll never be anything useful ever again. It's toast. Salted earth. It's done. It's done. That is destroying the environment. But no, you know. Still, Tolkien didn't intend to explicitly inject his politics into Middle-earth. In a foreword written in for the 1965 publication of Lord of the Rings, Tolkien wrote, "As for any inner meaning or message, it has in the intention of the author none." He continued, "The prime motive was the desire of a tale-teller to try his hand at a really long story that would hold the attention of readers, amuse them, delight them, and at times maybe excite them or deeply move them." Teal, Lucky, and Maloney were clearly moved by The Lord of the Rings, moved to the far right. Their interpretations of the text do not reveal a right-wing underbelly of Middle-earth, but they might highlight the vast chasm between what is in front of them and what they want that world to be. As James puts it, the amazing thing is that what you see in The Lord of the Rings says more about you than it does about the storyline. Yes, I would agree with that in some ways, in a lot of ways, probably. If you see a cross-dresser and deforestation as the destruction of the environment, but you don't acknowledge that the Green Initiative has done way worse, what it says of you is that you're a moron. Protecting their lands from evil is the theme. That's what Maloney sees. That's what Teal sees. That's what Lucky sees. That's why you have those watchtowers. That's why Maloney acknowledges the, looking at the idealization of the Shire and seeing it be destroyed. That's what we are watching. We are watching our shires be destroyed. And we need to fight back against that. When they race mixed the man and the elf, Aragorn and Arwen, that's not mixing with an orc or Uruk-hai was some dark creature that part of Sauron's army. These are the goodly races that share a lot of common values. We don't share a lot of common values with orcs and Uruk-hai. We don't share a lot of common values with a lot of what the authors at Salon want to mass import into our country. The hordes are at the gate. And we need more people who understand what Tolkien was actually writing about. Good versus evil. Because every single day we see that evil that they are importing into our countries, murdering and raping and destroying our way of life. And we need to be like the men of Gondor and the elves of Rivendell. And we need to rise up and fight back. That'll do it for today. Actually, we'll probably do something on that topic next week. I thought about doing it today, but I've been saying that I was going to do this for a while, and I didn't want to keep pushing this off. So, and it's also fitting. So, end on that note. Next week, more on that note with some videos and some other stuff that link into things that have happened over the course of the last week or so. I normally don't try to talk about explicitly about current events on this show, but some of last week's current events tie into some of the topics of this article and what I was talking about with this. So I will be talking about some of what happened both with a trial and the aftermath of that, and some stuff that was going on in Ireland. And then hopefully by this time next week, that stuff will have kind of fleshed itself out a little bit more and see what direction everything's going. And I have a more clear picture than what I currently have. I also don't like talking about stuff as it's happening, because then things change drastically and you're left wondering what the fuck for the next week. So next week we will talk about more current event type stuff, and then I have to schedule it. Jim knows, and I've got to start reaching out to some other people. But this is 396, so by the end of the summer we will hit episode 400, and Justin and Jim's final dumb gay shit show is on the horizon. I will update as soon as I have a date for that and a guest list and everything else. In the meantime, I will have a couple Substacks coming out this week as well. So check those out. Have a great rest of your week. To all the fathers out there, happy Father's Day this up. And I will catch you next week. Later.